In today's session, we will talk on social anthropology. Social anthropology is one of the branches of anthropology. It deals with the social and cultural aspects of mankind. According to Evans Pritchard, social anthropology has quite a different task to perform. It studies social behavior, generally in institutionalized forms, such as the family, kinship system, political organization, legal procedures, religious cults, and the like, and the relations between such institutions. It also studies them either in contemporaneous societies or in historical societies for which there is adequate information of the kind to make such studies feasible. The task of the social anthropologist is to reveal the structure of the society in which people live. A total social structure, that is, the entire structure of a given society, is composed of a number of subsidiary structures or systems which may include kinship, economy, religion, political system, etc. According to Radcliffe Brown, social anthropology is called the natural science of society. This discipline of anthropology involves the comparative study of social systems. Social systems are the independent activities, institutions, and values by which people live. It is a job of anthropologists to identify the components of social systems and analyze their interdependence. Among the Indian anthropologists, S.C. Dubey and M.N. Srinivas have given very plausible definitions of social anthropology. According to S.C. Dubey, social anthropology is a part of cultural anthropology which devotes its primary attention to the study of social structure and religion rather than material aspect of culture. M.N. Srinivas points out in his paper Sociological Bulletin, which was published in 1952, that it is a comparative study of human societies. Ideally, it includes all societies, primitive, civilized, and historic. Social anthropology studies different societies, especially simple society and the networks of their social relations. However, different anthropologists differ in their opinion about the use of the name of these very branches of anthropology. Some prefer to use the name social anthropology, while some prefer cultural anthropology. Now, let's talk on how social and cultural anthropology originated. Social anthropology is the outcome of the impact of the Durkheimian school of thought, followed by the British anthropology, whereas cultural anthropology in the contemporary situation refers to the Americanization of these disciplines. Emile Durkheim, a French sociologist, had a decisive influence on the development of social anthropology. Following the principles of Durkheim, A.R. Radcliffe Brown developed social anthropology in England. In the development of social anthropology, the Polish-born and English-trained B. Malinowski's works and publications are very important. In India, as anthropology has evolved under the shadow of British colonialism, it adopted the term social anthropology. However, since the early 50s, interaction between Indian and American anthropologists increased substantially, and so the academic canvas was greatly influenced by both schools. Claude Levi-Strauss states that cultural anthropology and social anthropology are like two books which include the same chapters, though the latter may be arranged in different order and the number of pages in each may vary. Social anthropology developed out of the discovery that all aspects of social life, be it economic, technical, political, legal, aesthetic, and religious, make up a significant complex. A technique does not merely have a use, it also fulfills a function, and a function infers sociological and not only historical, geographical, mechanical, or physiochemical considerations. The complex of functions, in turn, brings in a new notion of structure. Cultural anthropology has an entirely different path. Instead of the static view of the whole social group as a sort of system or constellation, the question of dynamics, of how culture is handed down from generation to generation, was to lead cultural anthropology to exactly the same conclusion. That is, that a system of interconnections among all aspects of social life plays a more important part in the transmission of culture than any one of those aspects considered separately. Further, social anthropology is largely synchronic in approach, that is, denoting the study of societies and culture at a given point of time, while cultural anthropology encompasses diachronic approach, which means denoting the study of societies and culture through time. One of the main reasons for the slow growth of anthropology was a lack of the Europeans to recognize similarities of remotely located societies. When human diversity was accepted as natural, it opened the doors for formal studies. It is interesting to know that the earliest anthropologists like Tyler, Morgan, Spencer, Bois, etc., were by and large armchair anthropologists who were basing their conclusions on the secondary data and secondary sources of the so-called exotic and strange people inhabiting the remotest of areas. That is why the common man and even the intellectual class had considered anthropologists as eccentrics. The first academic position in anthropology was held by Edward Tyler at Oxford in 1884. The Jesup North Pacific expedition led by Frank Bois in 1897 and the Cambridge expedition to the Torres Straits in 1898-99 comprising Haddon, Rivers, Seligman and others marked the beginning of formal anthropological fieldwork. Malinowski transformed the fieldwork in anthropology and make it compulsory. In this way, the 19th century anthropologists studied the oddities out of pure interest in them and not to reform the world or to earn a living. Consequently, a sense of detachment and a tradition of relative objectivity have become the distinctive attributes of anthropology. During the first quarter of the 20th century, anthropology started blossoming in a full-fledged academic discipline. Gradually, it became a mature discipline that studied all about man and his work. Social-cultural anthropology is a study of human society and culture, the subfield that describes, analyzes, interprets, and explains social and cultural similarities and differences. To study and interpret socio-cultural diversity, the anthropologists engage in two kinds of activity: ethnography, which is based on fieldwork, and ethnology, which is based on cross-cultural comparison. Ethnography provides an account of a particular community, society of culture, but the focus is usually small scale. During ethnographic fieldwork, the ethnographer gathers data that he or she organizes, describes, analyzes, and interprets to build and present the account in the form of book, article, or film. Ethnology examines, interprets, analyzes, and compares the result of ethnography. They explain cultural differences and similarities and test hypotheses so as to build theory to enhance socio-cultural system. The word primitive, which has become established in anthropological literature, does not mean that these societies are either early in time or inferior to other kinds of societies. Even though such societies are less developed than developed societies, in some respects, they are often more developed and complex in others. For various reasons, primitive societies have long held the attention of anthropologists. They provided important clues in the search for the origin of institutions. Anthropologists were interested in them because they display institutions in their simplest forms, and that it is sound method to proceed from examination of the more simple to examination of the more complex. Another reason for studying primitive societies at the present time is that they are being rapidly transformed and must be studied soon or never. These vanishing social systems are unique structural variations, a study of which aids us very considerably in understanding the nature of human society. The study of primitive societies also has intrinsic value. They have their own interests and perception of the way of life, the values, and the beliefs to live in their physical environment with minimum requirements of technological comfort. The anthropologists, therefore, feel it an obligation to make a systematic study of as many of these primitive societies as they can while there is still an opportunity to do so. Now, let us discuss the points which make social anthropology a unique subdiscipline of anthropology. The uniqueness of this discipline lies in the following approaches and themes. First is holism. Holism, or the multifaceted approach, is the attempt to study the whole picture and to apply knowledge from different fields to the understanding any aspect of behavior. Traditionally, individual anthropologists try to be holistic. It regards social life as a system of which all the aspects are organically connected. Next factor is cultural relativism. For an objective study, an anthropologist should possess the sense of neutrality. He avoids ethnocentrism and prefers the idea of cultural relativism. Cultural relativism is a principle that all the cultural patterns are equally valid and the behavior of one culture should not be judged by the standards of another culture. The next factor is cross-cultural comparison. Anthropologists have been always concerned to the study of the infinite cultural heterogeneity. The anthropologists adopt cross-cultural comparison, also known as comparative method, for their study. Two major types of cross-cultural studies are descriptive analytical and correlational. A descriptive analytical cross-cultural study involves comparison of two or more culture or societies. Margaret Mead's Sex and Treatment or Ruth Benedict's Pattern of Culture can be cited as example of such study. A correlational cross-cultural study employs statistical measures to determine the degree of relationship between the cultural traits or institutions of societies. Murdoch gave correlational cross-cultural comparison a distinctive color in his social structure. Now another factor, fieldwork. A distinctive feature of anthropology is its emphasis on the fieldwork for obtaining data. Anthropologists considers participant observation as one of the most important techniques for collecting data. Observation has always been the basis of any systematic and scientific study. In addition, objectivity in the study is also to be maintained. Anthropology is useful to understand human beings. It helps us to avoid misunderstandings between people. If we can understand why other groups of people are different from ourselves, we might have less reason to condemn them for their behavior that appears strange to us. Anthropology can reduce ethnocentrism by instilling an appreciation of cultural diversity. Social anthropology plays public service role. It can indeed be applied. It can be used to identify and solve social problems. Applied anthropologists work for NGOs, ethnic associations, and business. Among the domain of applied anthropology are educational, urban, medical, and business anthropology. Educational anthropologists work in classrooms, homes, neighborhoods, and other settings relevant to education. Their applied research leads to policy recommendations. Urban anthropologists study city life and urbanization. Rural social forms affect urban adjustment. They pay attention to such forms and to urban social units as they propose, design, and implement social policy for cities. Medical anthropologists study disease and healthcare cross-culturally. Cultures differ in their notion about what causes illness. For business, key aspects of anthropology include ethnography and observation as ways of gathering data, cross-cultural expertise, and a focus on cultural diversity. Social anthropology deals with the study of social and cultural aspects of all kinds of society through time and space, though the early anthropologists took their interest in studying what so-called primitive societies. They study, analyze, and interpret different societies cross-culturally. They reduce the ethnocentrism and have a firm belief on cultural relativism. These can bring to identify and solve social problems. Anthropologists are experts on human problems and social change, and they study, understand, and respect cultural values.